Good afternoon. Again, my name is Eddie Miranda. I'm Vice President of Government Affairs at Houston Metro. Houston Metro doesn't have a project under construction today, so I don't have a presentation for you today. But I thought I would talk to you a little bit about where we are in terms of rail in Houston, mostly light rail today, some recent lessons that we've learned, and how we're going to try and sell or pitch a future referendum coming up in the near future. So in 2003, as most of you know, Metro passed a bond referendum that approved $640 million in bonds. We were able to combine that with federal funds, and we built 3 rail lines. The first one, the red line, cuts through the heart of downtown Houston. The other 2, the green East End line and the purple Southeast line, were completed in 2016. There's a little bit of delay there due to some hiccups and overpasses that we had to build over some heavy rail, but we got it completed in 2016 and are moving forward now. We recently, last year, in 2017, overhauled our bus system, so now it integrates more quickly and better with our rail system, creating a true transit system. So that brings us to today. Metro today has already reached its bonding capacity from that $640 million. And we're looking to go back to the citizens of Houston and ask them for some additional bonding capacity. The new plan is meant as a reset of Metro's long-term regional plan. We spent here in Metro the last 5 months conducting numerous community meetings throughout the region. And simply we're asking the citizens, what is it that you want from your transit system? Board members and staff attended 30 listening sessions throughout the region and wanted to hear what people thought of their system and what they wanted to be realized in the future. Now, as you can imagine, when you go to a community meeting and you ask people, what do you think of your system, the remarks are not always as glowing as we would like them to be. But we understood that and we knew that. But we wanted to know, where do we need to go going forward? What's the plan moving forward? We want to make sure that what we build, the community wants. We don't want to go to the community and say, this is what we think you should have, if it's not going to be utilized. So as you all know, in the last 15 years, Houston has grown tremendously. Our regional transit service and freeway system has rushed to keep up with growth. Most people say by 2040, the region will have 9.6 million people, and it'll be a crushing demand for transit, especially between the high-density job centers scattered around Houston, the suburbs, and moving people back and forth. We believe that our region is finally getting to that boiling point, where people are realizing that we simply will not be able to build ourselves out of congestion with just highways. Recently, our Harris County Judge Ed Emmett expressed some regret that we had not had more foresight in the 80s when we expanded the Katy Freeway. He said he wished we had the foresight to put commuter rail down the Katy Freeway and connect downtown Houston to Katy. In addition to that, our mayor, Sylvester Turner, has put pressure on Metro and its community and said, we need you to be bold. Stop with the small projects, be bold, give the people what they want. So we've come to understand and hear those lessons and hear those messages. And we as a region also need to appreciate and comprehend that the decisions we make today, as you all know, have consequences on the future. We can either build rail today at today's cost and ensure that we keep up with population growth and demand, thus making our region economically competitive in a global market, or we can wait until the congestion brings our region to gridlock and start to enhance our rail then and see how far that gets us. As I mentioned, with the encouragement of our political leaders, Metro is working with TxDOT today so that as we move forward with our highway expansion in the future, they will consider the transit needs as well as the highway needs. We hope that they will allow us some right-of-way as we move forward when they expand these highways. Particularly right now, they're expanding I-45, or they're getting ready to expand I-45. We've been in conversations with them to give us an envelope in the middle of the highway so that we can build future transit networks, whether it's a commuter rail or something. I-45 in particular would likely be an elevated commuter rail going down the middle of the highway. And all we've asked is for an envelope so that we can build the pylons, if you will, to put in the ground later and elevate the rail system. Those of us that live in the Houston region had a glimpse of what future would look like if we neglect to build rail. As you know, 4 months ago, Hurricane Harvey hit the Houston area. The flooding that came from that storm overtook a large number of our highways, expressways, overpasses, and roadways. For a week, our entire region shut down, and it was nearly impossible to drive around. But it was the following week that I believe gave us a window into our future. As schools started to reopen, people started to go back to work, millions of people hit the roadways and the highways and major arterials and found them to be flooded still. This led to unprecedented gridlock. Drivers were spending enormous amounts of time on the highway. Commutes that normally took 30 to 40 minutes were taking 3.5 to 4 hours. By the time you got to work, it was pretty much time to go back home. And I'm not lying, it really was that bad. It was unbelievable. There was nowhere to get around, and you were sitting on the highway with nothing to do but sit. In addition to that, approximately 100,000 cars were damaged, lost, or totaled due to the flood. Rental car companies were out of cars. Insurance companies moved as quickly as they could to address the vehicle losses, but it took weeks and months for people to get their vehicles inspected, declared a total loss, negotiate an insurance payout, and then buy a new vehicle. All of this congestion led people to realize that at least for the immediate future, their best way of getting around the region was to utilize the rail system. Metro saw a spike in ridership over the first couple weeks following the storm. Now, I'm not going to stand up here and tell you that we were able to keep all of that ridership. That would be a lie. As the roadways cleared and individuals were able to replace their cars, people returned to their normal habits. However, we did hear from many people that had never used the rail system before, that were pleased to know that with just a little planning, they were able to get around and to and from work. Our hope is that from this terrible tragedy, our region was able to learn some important lessons. First one being that we have to support and expand rail, whether it's light rail or commuter rail, to ensure our future. We in Metro also learned some lessons about the need to be better prepared for Hurricane Harvey. Metro was fortunate that we did not have catastrophic damage to our system, but we did endure approximately $17 million in damages. There were a handful of buses that were attempting to make their way back to storage facilities that got overtaken by water. In addition, several of our rail power stations that are at grade or underground were severely damaged. Numerous park and ride facilities were overrun with water, and we had significant damage to our security cameras along our HOV lanes. We were able to work around the damages, and our system was operational within a few days. But it did highlight for us the need to do preventative measures today for the future. We need to build our elevated park and rides and bus storage facilities. We need to move and better secure some of our power stations. We need to think about how to better be prepared to withstand a similar storm, as we may be the only way people are able to get to and from work in the days following. Transportation should connect all aspects of Houston's future. There is no way we can reach our potential as a city if we don't tackle the issue of transit or rail. There are about 2.3 million people inside the city limits today, and we continue to grow 100,000 people annually. Now, a lot of people will tell you that high-capacity transit is the true alternative to congestion, that we will solve the congestion problem. I would argue that I don't think that's the case. Even with a highly functional rail system, we will not be able to reduce all the congestion in the Houston area. But it has to be a tool. We have to be willing to invest now to make sure we can move people around the future and be economically competitive. After our red line opened in 2005, it created an $8 billion positive economic impact for our region. Our downtown today looks remarkably different than it did in 2003. When I first moved to Houston in 2000, I was told, don't go downtown after 5 o'clock. It's kind of sketchy. Don't be walking around by yourself. I was told all those things that I'm sure many of us have heard of some dilapidated parts of our cities. But today, Houston downtown is thriving with restaurants, bars, clubs, soccer stadiums, basketball stadiums, theater district, convention centers, and a lot of that many people would attribute to the light rail. As advocates and supporters of transit, this should be our message to the citizens we serve, and it should be our message to Metro as we go out for a new referendum. We have to think about being economically competitive. We have to think about what drives large-scale corporations to Houston, such as we had hoped, Amazon. One of those things that people always talk about, and Amazon talked about, was transit. How are their people going to get around? It's one of the elements that make or break the decision of companies of all levels as to whether they want to stay in our cities or leave our city. As our economy evolves, we have to make sure we are evolving with it, including our infrastructure. We have to make sure we have the infrastructure to move large volumes of people at once. And we hope that at Metro that our citizens agree. We hope that we take all these lessons and incorporate them into a new long-range plan for Houston, one that I believe will include significant investment in rail. Thank you.